Welcome to this last comprehension lesson from our book. So basically, this one is about using different methods, different clues to basically understand when we don't understand. So unfamiliar language, you would have learned by the GCSE. You would have learned a lot of vocab. You would have revised it. You would be familiar with a lot of words. But then again, there are there are so many words out there, and even on the topic that you have learned, some words you might not have seen before. So you might be confronted to some unfamiliar language at some point. And if it's in the reading or in the listening, you're going to make sure that you make sense of it so you can actually answer your question. So that's what this last unit is all about, using different clues to understand unfamiliar language. So using different approach for tasks that look difficult for a starter, and then identifying false friend. So false friend are basically words that look the same than in English, but they don't exactly mean the same thing. And then understanding unfamiliar words, so whatever words that you don't know, how to basically break it apart so it goes down to something that you finally understand. So the first thing first, you know how it works. Get started. In this exam style questions, so the basically the people or answering. So they're showing you exam style questions on the get started, and then they're asking you different things, not to answer them. So please don't do the exam question just now. Don't answer it. Answer the questions that are around it. They are going to help you understand basically why we're doing this and what we're going to need to do this. Once you've done that, the first page is, as I told you, about how to approach a task that looks difficult. So, reading and listening can look difficult because suddenly you are confronted to some language that you might not know. So in your speaking or in your writing, the language you produce is the language you know. But in the reading and the listening, you're sometimes confronted to stuff that you don't know, structures that you're not clear about, or structures that have been put together in such a way that it gets confusing. And that is completely possible. So it could look difficult at first. You see a big text and you're like, oh, I just don't get it. Okay. So many times I've had students just seeing a block of words and telling me they can't actually do it. And when I asked them if they actually read the text, they said no. So first thing first, read the text. But what I'm trying to explain to you is that once we actually break things down, it becomes a lot easier. But it's just not to be scared by the difficulty of the task that is in front of you. So the first thing that I would tell you is to read the questions. I can't stress that enough. And I'm pretty sure I told you this story already twice. The story of my math exam where I read all the questions and then eventually I didn't actually have to do that much. That is so important to make sure you understand the question. And another reason for that is because when you read the question before reading the text, you actually know what you are looking for. So you're not just simply reading the text for reading the text, you're reading the text with a specific goal in your head. So that would be my first thing. Then again, don't go jump on the keywords once you've read your question and you see a keyword that kind of vaguely relates to it, and then write it down. Because as I told you before, you're in higher now. And as I told you before, sometimes they will be tricking you, like putting some different keywords but for the same questions, and only the little words like negations or little and, little buts are going to help you really understand which one is actually the right answer. So don't jump to the conclusion, but do read the question first. And then try to think about your synonyms. Okay, so if there's a word that you don't know, maybe you know something quite similar. Maybe think about, so I'm thinking especially like for when they ask you to answer in French. If you have a whole word, a whole text, and there's one keyword you don't understand, but you can understand it by the context. And if ever you do, you can use a synonym to answer your question in French. It shows a lot of fluency. So a lot of different techniques like reading, like using your synonyms, reading like before and after for the context, trying to use the grammatical like the grammatical job of the word to help understand what it means. So like for example, endings. If you see specific endings like ons, is likely going to be a verb, And then if it's a verb, then maybe it makes a lot more sense than if it was a noun. So like just trying to use all the linguistics that you've learned now to really ensure that you're putting all the chances on your side to understand your question. That's all what is about on page 1. I mean, on page, sorry, let me check. 52, but it's actually the first skill boost of that unit. And then the skill number 2 is how to identify false friends. So as I told you, a false friend is a word that really is similar than the English one, but it don't mean the same thing. So sometimes you'll have words that are similar and do mean the same thing. So let's say a taxi, un taxi, a pizza, une pizza is very, 100% exactly the same words, and it means the same thing. But sometimes you will have words that look the same but mean different things, and that's what we call false friends. So there are actually, I'm not going to lie to you, there are a lot, but here on this page, it's just trying to give you the most common one. One that is not on here, and I'll take as an example, is the word gentil. Okay, so gentil, Gentil, which actually means kind, but it looks very much to the word gentle in English, but actually doesn't mean gentle. And they are two different things. Like, although they're not dramatically against each other in terms of meaning, they're not the same thing. I mean, being kind and being gentle, although they're two positive adjectives, they don't mean the same thing. So that's one example here. They're going to give you a lot more example on this page, and that's a very good thing because you get to extend your vocabulary and you extend your knowledge of like little tricks and stuff that French could give you. Once you've done that page, we're going to move on to page 3, which is how to deal with unfamiliar word, but on a construction level. So you know how to deal with these words on a grammatical level, using the context and all that jazz. What I want you to do here is to try and break the word down. And actually, it looks like it's difficult, but it's not that difficult. So if you have a look, a lot of words are built from roots. Okay, so exactly when I told you about the stem of a verb, they have like the stem is exactly what it's saying. So think about a flower. Okay, you have a flower, you have the stem of the flower. That's like the base, and then from that stem, you're going to have the flower that goes out with the petals and stuff. And that is basically what words are going to be in any language, in English as well. So let's take an example in English, the word unfortunately. Right. Like, imagine you're a French native and you're learning English and you don't actually know what unfortunately means. And what you're going to try and do here is to break it apart. So you can use different things. So if I don't know if I can actually write on this. No. Um, if I break unfortunately in little pieces, you first have the un in front, the an. Okay, an means the opposite of something. Okay, something that is unfortunate, something that is unnecessary, something that is, well, you got the idea, right? Unnecessary is basically something that is not necessary, so it's the opposite of necessary. So here, unfortunately, is going to be the opposite of fortunately. Okay, so you can put that on the side. You can remove un. Just remember that whatever the word that is there means, you're going to need the opposite. So unfortunately, then the next thing we can scrap away is the ly at the end. Fortunately, remove the ly, and you have fortunate. Okay, right. So you had an adverb, fortunately, and now you're going to scrap away the ly, and you have an adjective. Fortunate. Oh, it is very fortunate. Okay, so now you're starting to get closer to the root of the verb, fortunate. And now, what is the next thing you can remove? Can you remove 4? Not really, doesn't mean anything. Can you remove 8? Yes, you can. Okay, that's another suffix that you can remove. So suffix actually means that it's coming after, and prefix means it's coming before. So here, unfortunately, the an would be a prefix, the li would be a suffix, and the 8 will also be a suffix. So the stem here is going to be fortune. Fortune. Okay, cool. Right, we know the word fortune, don't we? From its base, fortune means luck, doesn't it? Or kind of. It kind of means luck. So right, the base, the bare minimum of the big word we had before means luck, right? So luck, and then you add a suffix that makes it an adjective. So fortunate, so something that is lucky. Okay, so lucky. There we are. Okay, and then you're gonna add the ly that makes it an adverb. So ly, fortunately. Well, if we make lucky an adverb, we can have luckily. There you are. But even though you didn't understand, unfortunately, maybe you aren't going to, when it's to its bare minimum, to its stem, then you understand what it means and you can give it a synonym. Does that make sense? And then, like, you have the luckily, and then you know that whatever that means, you need the opposite, because remember we had unfortunately. Okay, so then the opposite of luckily. Right, you're starting to get the meaning now. Okay, so if you were learning English, you would now know that unfortunately means that something that is not, that is out of luck, basically. Okay, you didn't get luck. Oh, it's very unfortunate. Okay, it's out of luck, basically. And I've basically been babbling around for a good 3 or 5 minutes about the word unfortunately, but it's just to give you an example of how we can remove prefixes and suffixes in a word in any language to try and get the stem of a word, so then you understand it a lot better. Okay, so I think this is basically what this page is all about, trying to identify the prefix, the suffix, and then understand what the root is of that longer word to make it a shorter word, and then to be able to understand once it's at its bare minimum. That's basically what this page is about. So I'll let you have a look. To be completely honest with you, I find it fascinating. It's something that I've always liked when I was learning languages, like how words were constructed. So I just hope you have as much fun as me. If you do not understand, don't hesitate to ask questions to me. I'll be delighted to answer, because as I told you, I really like this. And then once you're done, you can move on to your turn question. And I'm going to stop talking now because I've been probably talking for a good 15 minutes, if not 20. So I'll let you do the U-turn question. And yeah, there's 2 of them. So one on one side, one on the other. If you want to review your skills at the end, great. And let me know what you thought from that lesson, if you find it hard or not. And I wish you all the luck for this.